How are y'all? Good. Y'all have a good day? Awesome. I'm excited to be here, man. I'm excited to see y'all here tonight, man. The message I'm sharing tonight is really the message of my life, man. This is really my story and what God has done in my life, and it's pretty awesome to get to share it with people. So I'm going to get something clear. Well, let me tell you, turn your Bibles to 2 Corinthians chapter 12. I forgot that. Go ahead and turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7. We'll start there in a minute. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7. Is that right? That didn't sound right when it came out of my mouth the third time. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, yes. Golly. It's the message of my life, but I don't know where it is in the Bible. Awesome. All right, I want to clear something up for you. Some of y'all have asked me that this week. I want to go ahead and get this said so I don't have to say it 1,000 times, okay? I don't play basketball. There you go, all right? I never did. I never was any good at it. I was terrible at it my whole life. Never any good, ever, all right? I'm 6'6", and I don't play basketball, all right? And it's really weird. It's not that I'm a terrible athlete. I actually ran track in college, but basketball, I got no skills, no instincts, no nothing. I have no idea what we're doing. I can't stand to watch it. I don't like to play it. None of it. I hate it, right? And you know what a burden it is to be 6'6" and not be able to play basketball, all right? Because I get asked those two questions every single day of my life, all right? Oh, my gosh, man, you're so tall. How tall are you? I'm 6'6". Do you play basketball? No. Oh my gosh, why not? Every day. All right. I want to get a T-shirt made that just says 6'6" and no. Leave me alone. Okay. All right. It's crazy. I was in the mall a few weeks ago. A little short guy comes up to me. I'm not kidding. He walks up and he's like, "Oh my gosh, man, you're so tall, man. Do you play basketball?" I'm like, "No, man. You're really short. Are you a horse jockey? Get out of here. All right. Leave me alone. Do you play miniature golf? Get out of here. It drives me nuts. All right." It's just weird. As I say, so I'm really good. I'm not good. I'm not that I'm a terrible athlete. I'm just good at weird stuff. Really, the only thing I've ever been good at in my whole life is running, water skiing, and surfing, believe it or not, all right? And believe it or not, what's crazy about that is surfing is probably the one I love the most, which is stupid because I live in West Texas, all right? We have lakes here. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but I love to surf, all right? I've been about 15 times in my life, and I've surfed at some really amazing places and had a lot of great experiences. But believe it or not, y'all, the best waves I've ever surfed in my life was in the Gulf of Mexico at South Padre Island in Texas, all right? South Padre is not known for good waves. The waves there are terrible. They're always little bitty, 2 feet, choppy, terrible waves. Summer 2005, though, I preached at 4 youth camps on South Padre. And it was rough. Suffering for Jesus every day, surfing every day, and preaching every night. It was tough, but somehow I suffered through that whole month on the beach. And every day I would go surfing, and every night I would preach to teenagers. It was awesome. And every morning I would go online, check the wave report to see what the waves were like. And as always, the waves down there are terrible. And every day the wave report would be like, 2 to 3 feet. One day I think maybe it was 4 feet, just little bitty choppy waves. Well, one night I go online, and one morning I go online to check the wave report, and it said the waves were 10 to 15 feet. I'm thinking that's got to be a misprint. There is no way that's right. I mean, maybe 10 to 15 inches, but not 10 to 15 feet. I mean, 10 to 15 feet, that's like up to that thing, whatever that is. It's like up there, okay? Gigantic, huge, I mean, no way. So me and these two guys who are way younger than me, we go down to the beach to check it out. And I'm not kidding. These waves are 10 to 15 feet. They're gigantic. They're huge. It's crazy. Now, the two younger guys chicken out, but I'm dumb enough to just go out there and do this, all right? And the reason the waves were so big, I didn't know this till later, is because Hurricane Ivan was coming into the Gulf, okay? All right? Now, look, I get it. If a hurricane hits your house, that's a bad deal. But if you're going surfing, it's awesome, okay? All right? Plus, you know what? Having a great story when you get to heaven, if you die surfing in a hurricane, you're going to be a rock star in heaven, all right? So sign me up. I'm in, okay? So I get my surfboard, and I start trying to plow through these waves to get out there and catch a wave, which really, y'all, that's the hardest part of surfing. Catching a wave is not that hard. Riding a wave is not that hard. Dragging your surfboard through the waves to get out there, that's the hard part, right? And I'm trying to get through the waves. It's killing me. And finally, there's kind of a break between sets. Ocean kind of flattens out for a minute. Man, I paddle as fast as I can to get out there where I need to be to surf, to catch a wave. And I get out there, and I'm sitting on my board, man, and it's this long line of real deal, hardcore, the real deal, real thing surfers, okay? And me, all right? At this point, it's very evident one of these guys does not belong, okay? All right? Because these guys, man, they are hardcore, all right? They're out there, man. They got their like 6-foot-long high-performance surfboards, man. I'm out there on my 9-foot-long beginner board, which is basically a flat canoe, all right? Okay, which pretty much tells anybody who's watching, that guy doesn't know what he's doing, and he's fixing to die, okay? All right? These guys are out there with their beautiful, bushy blonde hairdos, their deep, dark, rich, beautiful tans. I'm out there with this stupid ginger thing, just getting more freckles, okay? Getting sunburned, all right? When I get to heaven, I'm going to be able to sing, play basketball, and get a tan, all right? That's going to be, my new body's going to be able to get dark complexion, not get sunburned, not have to lather it with sunscreen all my life. Anyway, all right? So I'm sitting out there, though, acting like I know what I'm doing, okay? Well, all of a sudden, y'all, ocean starts rocking a little bit. You can tell the waves are fixing to come in. And all of a sudden, all at the same time, all these surfers, they turn and start paddling their boards. Way before I thought it was time to start paddling, all right? But if they're paddling, I'm paddling because I don't know what I'm doing, all right? So I start paddling my board as hard as I can go to get in front of this wave. And I feel this thing building up behind me, y'all, and I can tell this thing is bigger than any wave I've ever surfed in my life. I mean, I can feel this thing coming up, right? And I'm paddling along, and I just glance over my shoulder to peek up and see how big this wave is, right? And I go up to look, and I'm not kidding. It is like up to that, all right? It is gigantic. I'm like, oh, probably every cuss nasty word that I know, okay? All right? I'm like, if I don't catch this wave, I'm going to die, okay? That's a lot. If that water comes down on me, I'm going to get smushed, right? So I'm paddling as hard as I can to get in front of this thing. And all of a sudden, y'all, when this wave broke, believe it or not, y'all, I popped up my board, and I caught this wave, and it was absolutely the most amazing, awesome, ridiculous thing I've ever done in my life, all right? Because you got to understand, y'all, I'm a total beginner, okay? I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how to turn around, stop, nothing. All I know how to do, just go straight. That's it. And I rode this wave all the way to the beach, okay? All the way till my little tail fin's like in the sand, all the way in, right? And it was amazing. And I get it now, y'all. I mean, it was an intense, awesome, incredible, crazy experience, and I get it, y'all. I mean, I understand why a surfer will throw away everything in his life, man, to live in a van, to work at Taco Bell so he can be there when waves like that come in, y'all, because what surfing is really all about is experiencing the power of a wave like that. And I'm telling you, man, take it from me, a guy who likes to surf, I'll do whatever I got to do to put myself in a position to experience the power of a wave like that. And y'all, that's exactly what you and I need to do as followers of Christ with the power of God. Because y'all, a big part about what being a follower of Christ, what being a child of God is daily living our lives in a way that we put ourselves in a position to experience the power of God surging through our lives. And believe it or not, y'all, the place we can most effectively experience that power of God is in our moments of weakness. And tonight, that's what we're going to dig into. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, we're going to dig into what needs to happen for us to truly experience that power of God through the ups and downs and the heartaches and the difficulties that we might face in our lives. So look with me in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7. The first thing, y'all, we can draw from this passage that needs to happen for us to truly experience that power of God in our moments of weakness is we got to learn to overcome desperation in a moment of weakness, all right? We got to learn how to stop freaking out when we get that bad news. We got to learn to stop freaking out when we go through a hard time, all right? Look what it says, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7. So to keep me from becoming conceited, because of these surpassingly great revelations, there was given me a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. Now, y'all, the person who wrote this passage is the Apostle Paul, okay? The Apostle Paul is the guy who wrote over half the New Testament. The Apostle Paul is probably the most gifted, talented ministers in the history of Christianity, okay? That's why we still talk about the guy 2,000 years later. This guy literally changed the world for Jesus, okay? And because this guy was so talented, because he was so gifted, it would have been easy for a guy like Paul to get cocky. It would have been easy for Paul to be arrogant because he was able to do so many things so well. But y'all, that never happened. You see, Paul had a weakness that kept him humble, all right? And he doesn't tell us what this weakness is, which I think is a beautiful thing. Because if Paul told us what his struggle was, what his weakness was, and we didn't relate to it, we didn't struggle with the same thing, it might not relate to us. It might not make sense to us. But y'all, it doesn't matter. Like that's the beautiful thing about that Paul doesn't tell us what it is. It means it doesn't matter what your weakness is, what your struggle is, or my struggle is, or Paul's struggle is. Whatever our struggles are, the message is that God is big enough to get us through them, whatever they are. Whatever this struggle was, he doesn't tell us what it is, but he called it a thorn in the flesh. And it's clear from the context and the verses around that this thorn in the flesh was an ongoing daily struggle that brought a great sense of frustration to Paul's life. And Paul's response to this weakness was to go to God. In fact, y'all, he went to God 3 times and he asked God three times to take this weakness away from him. But y'all, when he went to God, he went there with a willingness to accept God's answer, even if that answer was no, wasn't the answer he wanted. He went there with a willingness to accept God's answer, whatever it was, as the best answer for him. And y'all, that's what you and I have to do when we face a hard time. We face a hard time, we got to go to God. But we have to go to God with a willingness to accept his answer. And when we face hard times, we all go running to God. All of us do. Lost people run to God when they face a hard time. Atheists run to God when they face a hard time. We all go running to God. The problem is, most of the time we run to God, we don't go there with a willingness to accept his answer, whatever it is. Most of the time we go there with an agenda of what we think God needs to do to fix the problem. And if God's answer doesn't match up with our agenda of what we think he needs to do to fix it, most of us go right back into handling our problems in our own strength, which leads us down the roads that leads us only to more and more and more and bigger problems. When I was growing up, my grandmother, I called her Meemaw, all right? Any Meemaw? In most events, I ask people, do you have a Meemaw? I'm going to ask here, are there any Meemaws here? Any of you Meemaws? Any Meemaws? Any Meemaw? I had a Meemaw and a Peepaw and a Mawmaw and a Pawpaw, okay? All right? I think grandparent names are hilarious, all right? Okay? Because you basically let an infant name the patriarch, the matriarch of your family, okay? All right? Because whatever that baby says, the first time grandma picks it up, that's her name for the rest of her life, all right? Like my kids call my mom BB, okay? Because the first time my mom picked up my daughter Ellie, Ellie's like, BB, your name's BB forever. I think it's awesome, okay? I think a great granddad name, if I ever get to be a granddad, greatest granddad name ever, I want him to call me Pee-Pee. I think that would be amazing, okay? All right? That'd be awesome. I'm like, why do you call you Pee-Pee? Because I'm old, dude. I go pee like 12 times a night. Leave me alone, right? Okay? What's awesome about that is y'all get that joke. When I tell that joke with teenagers, nobody gets it, right? They don't understand, but y'all get it. I love you for that. All right, anyway, okay? Meemaw, right? Her best friend when I was growing up was a ding-dang Avon lady, okay? I hope there's not an Avon lady here, okay? If there is, brace yourself, okay? All right? Because Avon lady, man, Avon lady, Meemaw would buy all of our Christmas presents from the Avon lady, okay? Listen, man, Avon lady, if you know what that is the worst stuff ever. It's just junk. Like literally, if a Mary Kay lady and a Walmart lady had a baby, that's an Avon lady, okay? All right? It's awful, right? And Meemaw bought all the Christmas presents for the grandkids from the Avon lady, right? So like 5 years of my life as a little kid, Meemaw got all the boys these little bottles of cologne, okay? Y'all probably remember them. They were shaped like a Coleman lantern or a Pony Express guy or whatever, a race car, whatever. But it's cologne. I'm 8. I'm an 8-year-old boy. I'm not putting anything on my body that's going to attract a girl to me. No, thank you, all right? Ain't happening. But Meemaw doesn't know. She keeps on giving it to us. Well, finally, I guess one year she figured it out that we all hated it, okay? But so she doesn't get us cologne, but she still goes to the ding-dang Avon lady to get our presents, all right? So you know what she got us for all the boys instead of cologne? Soap on a rope. For a crib, y'all know what soap on a rope is? It's a bar of soap with a rope stuck in it. It comes back out. It goes back in. I don't know. I guess you put it around your neck. It's a soap necklace, I guess. I don't know, man. It's when you put it around your neck, get all lathered up. It's like, hey, what's up, bathtub bling? Woo! It's just ridiculous, right? Well, as a kid, I was embarrassed about it, man. I mean, I was like, what am I going to do if one of my friends come over and they're like, hey, man, why do you have that soap necklace in your shower? You know, what am I going to say? I kind of feel dumb when I think about it now because it wasn't that big a deal, but at the time I was embarrassed, right? At the hypothetical situation, someone might see it, okay? And I begged my parents to let me throw it away. Of course, my parents, the most practical people on earth, right? We're not wasting 49 cents on a bar of ivory, okay? So I'm taking like 12 showers a day, trying to get it small and if I can pull the rope out so it's just a bar of soap, right? Well, in the middle of all this, this girl in my first period class, I'm sitting there one morning, no lie, y'all, she leans up like this and she starts sniffing me. I'm not kidding. She goes like, I'm like, what are you? She's like, what are you doing, man? She's like, you know what? I'm like, what? You're weird. That's what? She's like, you smell kind of funny. I smell funny? Well, it's not the cologne because I didn't wear the cologne. It's a ding-dang soap on a rope, okay? So not only do I have to go to school worrying about somebody, worry about somebody seeing that in my shower, I got to go to school and smell funny. I'm done. I am done with soap on a rope, y'all. And I took the easiest, quickest, fastest solution I could find, and I flushed that sucker right down the toilet, okay? I know. And it went down, but evidently it didn't go all the way down, okay? All right? So every time I'm flushing my toilet for a month, it's overflowing, okay? All right? Which is not out of the ordinary for me, but only now when it happens, it's got soap bubbles in it, okay? All right? It like lathers up into like this self-cleaning toilet, okay? Right? Well, this goes on for like a month. My dad's like, dude, what? And Dad knew I was a weird kid. My dad's like, what is, you have any idea what's wrong with your toilet? I'm like, I don't know, man. I think I eat too much fiber. I don't know what's going on, okay? Again, y'all get that. Teenagers don't get it. Anyway, okay? So anyway, man, so my dad calls a plumber, all right? Are there any plumbers here? Because we're about to talk about them, okay? There's no way in the whole wide world on earth I could ever be a plumber, okay? Because the first thing this dude does, he takes his bare hand, no rubber glove, bam, and jams it right down my toilet, man. Just digging. I'm like, dude, trust me. You know, he's just digging, right? He can't find anything. So he has to undo the toilet, flips it over. As soon as he undoes it and he flips it over, you can clearly see the problem, okay? You can see the soap on a rope just like wedged up in there, right? Well, my dad's standing there. He turns around and looks at me, and he's like, you know anything about that? I'm like, ha. What am I going to say? Oh, my sister did it. What am I going to do, right? I'm busted, dead to rights, okay? So here's what my dad does. He's old school, y'all. I mean old school, okay? Reaches down in there, gets the soap on a rope, he rinses it off in the sink, and he hangs it back up in my shower, okay? All right? Y'all think I smelled funny before? Holy cow, okay? All right? It's crazy, man. All of that because I was embarrassed about a soap on a rope and somebody thought I smelled funny. Here's what's ridiculous about that story, all right? Flushing a soap on a rope down a toilet is a really bad idea if you're 8 years old, okay? Y'all, I was a senior in high school when I did it, okay? All right, yeah. I had options, man. I mean, I could have gone to the dump ground. I could have driven down the street and thrown out the window. I could have done anything, but I didn't care. I did not care how I got rid of that. I didn't care how I got rid of the problem, y'all. I just wanted it gone. Listen to me. That's exactly how most of us respond to a hard time in our lives. We don't care how we get rid of it. We just want it to go away. And if God won't take it away forever, most of us are pretty good at finding a way to make it go away for a little while. Sometimes we'll do things that aren't that big a deal. Just to get our mind off of it, to escape. We'll go online, we'll go play golf, we'll play on our phones, whatever, to escape. Sometimes, man, we'll use terrible things to medicate our pain. That's the root of almost every addiction. Drugs, alcohol, sex, pornography, cutting, whatever. We use terrible things to medicate our pain to get away from it. I understand that, man. Because that's where I lived for a long time in my life. Because I've shared with you a couple times this week. When I was 7 years old, I stayed over after Christmas with my aunt and uncle. And while I was there, two of my older teenage cousins put me in a closet and they molested me for a week. I'm not going to give details. You don't need them. You don't want them. End of the week, they told me that if I told anybody that they would kill me. I'm 7 years old, so I believed them. I didn't tell anybody. I kept that a secret until I was in my 30s. And because of that, man, I'm a 7-year-old kid. I've got this colossal secret, this overwhelming shame and pain that I thought was my fault. And I started finding ways to medicate it. I started finding ways at a very young age to medicate this pain in really unhealthy ways, which over time led me down some roads of some really ugly addictions. Got to a point, 2005, I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't pretend it didn't happen anymore like I did when I was a kid. I got to a point where I set a date. I was going to commit suicide. I was done. The depression, the anger, the bitterness, all of it. Through a series of events, I won't go into all the details of it. I told my wife what was going on. I got in counseling. I got in help. God worked with me, and I went through a long process of recovery. And God brought me back and got me to healing and to wholeness. And I'll tell you more about that later. But one of the things I want you to get from this, especially some of you younger people, is this. For a long time, I listened to the lies of the world. Listen to the lies that this stuff will help you, or this stuff will fix you, or this will make you a little bit better. And I'm telling you, listen to me, I don't care what you've battled or what you've struggled with. None of the stuff, y'all, learn from my mistakes. None of the stuff the world has to offer you that says it will fix you or take away your problems or medicate your pain. None of that stuff will take away your problems. None of that stuff will fix your problems. It'll give you temporary relief, sure. It'll give you a little temporary fix or a temporary escape, but it'll never bring any real or lasting relief. And the only place, y'all, for any of us to go and find what we need in the midst of a difficult situation is to do what Paul did and go to God. And y'all, Paul went to God. But y'all, when Paul went to God, rather than asking God for strength or for guidance or even the purpose, man, Paul went to God and asked God the same selfish question that most of us ask when we face a hard time, which is to beg God to just make it go away. Listen to me. I'm not saying it's wrong to ask God for healing. That's not what I'm saying, okay? Because that's not wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong to ask God for deliverance, because that's not wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong to ask God to take away your problems. But listen, most of the time the answer to that request for God to magically just make it all go away is no. He's not a genie in a bottle, y'all. I tell teenagers this all the time. God never wastes a hurt. And when you're hurting, when you're going through hard times, that's what God does best. I was at a camp with a bunch of middle schoolers one time. And I asked them, just middle schoolers, raise your hand. When's the time in your life you were the closest to God that you'd ever been? Middle schoolers raising their hand. Well, youth camp, fall retreat, winter retreat, disciple now, things like that. I said, okay, now just the adults. When was the time in your life when you were the closest to God? You know what the adults said? When I lost my job, when I lost my son, when I lost my marriage, when I got cancer. Why do we run from the things that bring us to God? When you look back over your life, the times in your life, when were you the closest to God? Was it on some mountaintop experience? Or was it when you were going through some gutter-top experience in your life and God walked right with you through the middle of it? But we run from that stuff. That's what God does best, man. He takes us through the hard times. He's not a genie in a bottle. If God just magically took it away every time we asked him, that's what we do. We'd wait till we had a list of problems. We'd go get that lamp off the shelf. Hey, Jesus, here's a list of stuff. Would you fix it? Thanks. Go back and I'll see you when I got a problem again. It's not how it works. For some reason, y'all, the God of this universe chooses to partner with you and I and walk beside us through the junk that we go through. Listen, it took me a long time to get to where I can tell you and say what I'm fixing to say. I'm glad that God did not deliver me from all my past and all my struggles. Because you know what? I had to work hard for a long time. Going to therapy, all kinds of spiritual work, all kinds of work. Walking daily, every day, depending on God, partnering with God. Every day was a battle just to get out of bed. I had to partner with God and walk beside God and go through and fight and claw and scrape and fight to get better, to get free, to get well. And when I have a weak day, a weak moment, because I still have them, one of the biggest things that helps me not to even think about going back is I know how hard I had to work to get from where I was to get to where I am. And I'm not doing all that again. And I'm glad that God didn't deliver me. Man, if God just magically just swooped in as a genie in a bottle and just fixed it immediately, you know how easy it'd be for me to go back to all that? For some reason, God chooses to partner with us, y'all. The God of the universe chooses to walk with us through our junk. And because God chooses to walk with us through our junk and through our hard times, that's why as adults who have been walking with Jesus for a long time, you can look back over your life and see that it's the hard times where you were the closest to God. You know why? It's because you were partnered with him. You were walking beside him. You needed him more than you ever had in your life to get through cancer, to get through that divorce, to get through that death. That's what God does best. When we're hurting, God is on point, man. That's what he does best. He chooses to partner with us and walk with us through our difficult situations. So, man, I don't think the best thing to do when we face a hard time is to beg God to make it go away. I think a better thing to do is to ask God to give us strength to live with our weakness and wisdom, man, to learn from it, and power to grow through it. Y'all, we got to stop asking why me and start asking what for. We got to stop asking, God, why is this happening to me? And learn to say, God, what is it you want to teach me about you and about life as I learn to live with my weakness? And I promise you, when you get to a place where you can say that, you can stop freaking out in a moment of crisis. You can stop being desperate in a moment of crisis. That's how you can learn to begin to experience that power of God in your moments of weakness. And the next thing that needs to happen for us to truly experience the power of God in our difficult moments is we need to learn to stop depending on our own strength and to start depending on God's. Look what it says next. Verse 9. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. Now, this is where Paul gets his answer to his request. He begged God 3 times, God, take it away, take it away, take it away. This is where he gets his answer. And spoiler alert, it's not the answer he wanted, but it turned out to be way better than he could have imagined. Check it out. Take it away, take it away, take it away. Verse 9. But he said to me, God's answer to me was, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power, God's power, not your power, but God's power is made perfect in weakness. Y'all, the word grace here in the original language literally means merciful kindness. Okay? The word sufficient means to be enough. The word power literally means an achieving power that overcomes weakness. And the word weakness carries an idea of being powerless. The action of the verbs are ongoing, and the thought behind the entire verse is absolute dependence on God. So y'all, what this verse is saying as a whole is that if we'll trust God and absolutely depend on Him, God, in His merciful kindness and His all-sufficient strength, is powerful enough, y'all, powerful enough to walk with us when we don't have, in those moments when we don't have any power. You know, when I was a little kid, I was fascinated with teenagers. Like my teenage years, when I'm like 9, 10 years old, I could not wait to be a teenager. I mean, I thought that's probably why I still work with teenagers. I'm still fascinated with them. I still love them. I mean, I couldn't wait. I mean, in my mind as a little kid, I thought teenagers, they had cars. They go riding around. They were free. At least I thought they could go do whatever they wanted to do. I could not wait. I mean, I was so excited. If I saw teenagers driving down the street, I'd be like, oh, dude, check it out. Those guys are teenagers. I was fired up, right? I mean, I couldn't wait, man. I couldn't wait, especially because guys had like they'd have like sideburns or hairy legs, hairy arms, or big old hairy armpits, which is weird. But as a kid, I was obsessed with the hairy armpits. I couldn't wait. I get up every morning in the mirror, Mom, I think they're coming in, man. I hate them now, but I couldn't wait. I was a weird kid. None of y'all would have been my friend. I promise you. I was weird, right? So much so, if I went to a basketball game, some guy jacks a three-pointer. I don't even care about the three-pointer. I'd be like, oh, dude, check it out. He's got hairy armpits. Yeah. I was weird, okay? Right? Well, during this time of my life, my family goes to Six Flags in Dallas for vacation one summer, and my cousin Frank goes with us. And Frank was everything in my mind, y'all, that was cool about being a teenager, okay? Frank was a senior in high school. He was a football player. He was super buff, man. He had a tank top on that day so you could see all his muscles, right? I had long hair, hairy legs, hairy armpits. I mean, awesome, right? All day long. I don't even care about riding rides. I'm just walking next to Frank trying to sneak a peek. Like, oh, I was a weird kid, okay? We get to the ride called the Runaway Mine Train. Still there, not a giant roller coaster, kind of a medium roller coaster. We get up to it. I'm so fired up, y'all. Nobody else is riding but me and Frank. That's it. I'm so pumped, man. We get in. We're getting in the car. They're getting everything ready to go. I don't know if they did this on all the cars, but on our car, they forgot to pull the bar down that holds you in, okay? Right? So Frank's like trying to get their attention. I'm like, no, dude. Don't say anything, man. Don't tell them. This is going to be awesome. We're riding this thing, roller coaster, no bar. It's going to be awesome. He's like, okay, which is crazy, man. Because what 18-year-old guy lets a 9-year-old talk him into doing something crazy, right? I could always talk anybody into anything. That's probably why God called me to preach. But anyway, right? So then he reaches over to get a hold of me. I'm like, no, dude, get off of me, man. This is going to be awesome, dude. Bring it on. It's going to be, and he's like, okay. Again, I talked him into doing something ridiculous, right? So we start this ride. We go into the first curve. We're coming out of the second curve. It's at this point I realize there's no way. There is no way I can hold myself in this car. I'm going to fly out of this car, hit a tree, splat on the sidewalk, and ruin somebody's day at Six Flags over Texas, okay? right? So I let Frank grab me, man. He pulls me in, his big old buff arm, man. He just knocks me over, wraps me up, burying my face in that big old sweaty armpit I was so excited about, okay? All right? Y'all been to Six Flags in the summer. It's so humid, you know what I mean? You feel like you've been dipped in Coke. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm in. And I was freaking out at first, but I realized I'm good. I mean, I was as safe as a Hindu cow. I mean, I'm good, okay? All right? It's crazy, man. He had me. Finally, this ride comes to an end. We get done. I'm so fired up. I'm so excited. I don't know if I was more excited about the fact that I survived or the fact that my face was out of that armpit, okay? All right? But I didn't care, man. I was just glad that I made it through. And the only reason I made it through was because of Frank. Because, see, I couldn't have done it myself. No matter how hard I tried, I wasn't strong enough to hold myself in that car. But Frank was big enough, he was buff enough, he was strong enough, he could hang on with one arm and hold me with his other one, man. He had me, and the only choice I had, y'all, if I wanted to make it through that ride, was to stop depending on my strength and start depending on Frank's. And y'all, it's exactly what you and I have to do when we face a hard time when it comes to God. We got to stop trying to handle it in our own strength because we can't handle it in our own strength. We got to stop trying to depend on our own strength and learn to start depending on God's strength to carry us through those tough times. That's what we got to do. The problem is we think we can handle them alone. Most of us think, I mean, we're West Texans, man. We're tough. We got grit in our teeth, man. We're tough people, right? A lot of us buy into this lie that independence and self-sufficiency and this I got this kind of attitude is what life is about. Let me tell you something. Mark it down, y'all, and underline it twice and nail it to the walls. Weakness, cancer, divorce, car wreck, death, suicide, abuse, name it. Combined with independence and self-sufficiency and I got this kind of attitude almost always leads to more brokenness, more pain, and more heartache. But weakness, cancer, divorce, whatever difficulties in life you might face, combined with absolute dependence on God and depending on His strength, always, y'all, always leads to more hope, to more peace, and to more freedom and more strength. And it doesn't matter what your weakness is, man. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's cancer or car wrecks. His grace is enough. It doesn't matter if it's death or divorce. His grace is enough. It doesn't matter, man, if it's fear and loneliness. His grace is enough. It doesn't matter if it's bitterness and anger. His grace is enough. It doesn't matter if it's sin and addiction. His grace is enough, y'all. It doesn't matter what the weakness is. God, y'all, in His merciful kindness and His all-sufficient strength is powerful enough, y'all. He's powerful enough to bring you and me His power in our moments when we don't have any power. And I know it to be true, man, because I've experienced it myself firsthand. Because y'all, the fact that I was sexually traumatized as a 7-year-old kid, and I can stand on this stage and stages all over America without shame and fight for the hearts of hurting people, that's a picture of God's merciful kindness, y'all. The fact that I've stared depression and suicide in the face, and I'm still here, that's a picture of God's all-sufficient strength. And y'all, the fact that I'm having victory over my addictions is a picture of God bringing hope to a desperate situation. One thing I've learned, y'all, out of all the junk I've been through in my life, is that God, Romans 8:28, can take our desperation and turn it into hope. He can take our devastation and turn it into peace. He can take our darkness and turn it into light. He can take our defeat and turn it into victory. But y'all, none of that's possible as long as we keep on trying to handle it in our own strength with this I got this kind of attitude. We got to come to a place where we recognize I can't do this alone. When you recognize your weakness and your need for God, you trust in Him, that's when you begin to experience His power to carry you through those dark moments. Which is the next thing that's got to happen for you to experience that power of God. You got to learn to stop freaking out. Realize God is still on the throne. He's still in control. He's going to partner with you and walk beside you through these hard times. And if you'll depend on His strength and not your own, you can make it through. And the next thing, the last thing, probably the most difficult thing to wrap your head around was for me, for us to truly experience the power of God in overcoming our weaknesses, is we need to learn to come to a place where we can take delight in our weaknesses. Delight. You heard me right. D-E-L-I-G-H-T. Take delight. Sounds crazy, sounds nuts. Look what it says. It 2 Corinthians 12, verse 10. It says, for the sake of Christ, that means because of Jesus and what Jesus is doing in my life, I delight in weaknesses. I delight in hardships and insults. I delight in persecutions and calamities. Because when I am weak, then I am strong. Y'all, on the surface, that seems like the most ridiculous passage in the whole Bible. I used to get mad reading that passage when I was at my worst. How can I delight in this? What God's talking about here, he's not talking about, oh, I have cancer, yay, I'm going through a hard time, yippee. That's not what he's saying. You break this word down, what it's talking about is really contentment. It's coming to a place where you delight. You are thankful and grateful for what God is doing in your life in the midst of the hard time. Not I'm happy this is happening, but I promise you, when I learned that, there were days I was like, I am delighting. I am so grateful and thankful to God that he has chosen to partner with me and walk beside me through this valley of this darkness and this ugly stuff I got to work through. He chooses to walk beside us through our difficult stuff. On the surface, it seems crazy that was even a possibility for Paul, who 3 verses earlier is saying, God, take it away, take it away, take it away. Now he's saying, I take pleasure in it. That used to drive me nuts. How does Paul go from desperation to delight in 3 verses? What changed in 3 verses? Well, the thorn in the flesh didn't go away. That went on probably the rest of his life. This struggle didn't go away. You know what changed? Paul's attitude. He changed the way he was looking at things. Stop using that victim thinking. Why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this? What is this all about? Take it away from me. He went from that. He stopped defining himself by his circumstances. He stopped defining himself by his heartaches or his difficulties or whatever his struggle was. And he started defining himself by who he is in Christ. Y'all, that's what we have to do to make it through the hard times. That's what we have to do to come to a place where we can delight in what God is doing in our lives in the midst of these hard times. We've got to stop defining our lives and our lives by our weaknesses or our struggles or our ups and downs or our circumstances, y'all, because you know this. Most of y'all live a lot longer than me and know better than I do. Your circumstances are going to be up and down and all over the map all of your life. And if you define your life by your circumstances, you're going to have a pretty chaotic life. But if you define your life by who you are in Christ and who he says you are, a child of God, bought with the blood of Christ, you are an overcomer, that is who you are, then no matter what the crisis is, no matter what the difficulty is, you are prepared and ready to partner with God and walk through that tough time right beside him. You can't define yourself by your circumstances. You can't let your struggles and your ups and your downs define you. You've got to come to the place where you define yourself by who God says you are. My good friend John Randalls, who's an evangelist, passed away a few years ago. He used to say it like this. If you know who you are, you know who you serve, and you know where you're going, then your circumstances don't define you and they don't knock you down. Because I'm telling you, if you know who you are, you're a child of God, you're bought with the blood of Christ, you are an overcomer, you're worth dying for. That's who you are. You know who you serve the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, the God of the universe. And you know one day when it's all over and done with, you know where you're going. You're going to be in heaven with him forever. If you got all that nailed down and settled, it doesn't matter if you get cancer. I'm not saying cancer doesn't matter, but the statistics say 1 in 3 of us are going to get it. But cancer cannot touch who you are. Cancer cannot touch who you serve, and it certainly cannot touch where you're going. Can't let your circumstances define you. You got to define yourself by who God says you are. That's what has to happen. Don't let the circumstances define you. The ups and downs in life will knock you back. Look, taking notes, write this down. If what gives your life meaning and purpose is being happy or being comfortable, then a crisis will ruin your life. But if what gives your life meaning and purpose and value is glorifying God, then a crisis is an opportunity. I've preached that 1,000 times. Last July 31st, I woke up with a cough. Best shape of my life, running 3 miles a day, working out all the time. Next day, I woke up with 103 fever. Turns out I had fungal pneumonia. I didn't know it was fungal pneumonia until 6 months later. All the antibiotics they were giving me didn't do anything for me. I was sick as a dog for 3 months. It was really 4 months before I'd say I was well, 6 months before I was back to 100%. Lost 30 pounds. Never been sick in my life, man. It was awful. And the whole time I'm laying there sick, I'm usually generally pretty upbeat, positive kind of guy. It was hard to keep my head on top of things going through all that. I travel for a living. This is what I do. I had to cancel every one of my events for 3 months. My only source of income. It was a scary time, man. On top of all the sickness and all that junk was no money coming in for 4 months. And the whole time I kept thinking of that statement that I just said to y'all. If my life is about being happy and being comfortable, then a crisis will wreck your life. But if your life is about glorifying God, then a crisis is an opportunity. And I kept thinking over and over again, do you see this as a crisis or do you see this as an opportunity? It's almost like God was saying, did you really mean that when you said it all those times? I don't know if God gave me pneumonia or not, but he sure did use it to teach me that lesson. And through that, man, God did some amazing things. And people came to Jesus because of it. He blessed us beyond measure. The financial stuff wasn't ever a problem. Thought it was, but it wasn't. What I learned through that, what God nailed down in that, is that when I say that phrase that I've said 1,000 times, man, I know even more than I've ever known before. That what if you started thinking about a crisis situation like this? I'm thankful that God saw me as a person who's walking close enough to him that was worthy of this crisis. That he might be glorified through my life by me having cancer or me going through this separation in my marriage or this problem with my kids or whatever. God could use you to go through those hard times and be glorified through it. Don't let your life be based on being happy because your life's going to be up and down forever. Don't let your life based on being comfortable because you know that's not going to last. Let your life be about bringing glory to God no matter what you face. When we reach the world, like we talked about Sunday morning, all the craziness in our world, they can say whatever they want about faith and not believe it, but when they watch us walk through crisis, that's one thing that lost people cannot get their head around. My brother-in-law, man, when he married my sister, she was way away from God. He was an atheist. My sister was off on her crazy journey. My dad got cancer. My sister came back to Jesus. My brother-in-law, Bill, he'd never seen anybody go through a situation like that the way my family did. And that's why he got saved. He'd never seen anybody go through that kind of traumatic, that kind of difficulty, and have that kind of hope. That's what shines a light to the world, man. For us to get to that place, we got to stop defining ourselves by our circumstances. We got to stop depending on our own strength and start depending on God's. And to do that, I think what you got to do is learn to do what I call live weak. Okay? The very last part of that passage, it says, when I'm weak, then I'm strong. And that's a paradox that goes against everything that the world believes. The world says live strong. This is saying live weak. Okay? What it's talking about is this, is when you acknowledge the fact that you're too weak to handle this situation on your own. I can't do this on my own. When you acknowledge that weakness and your need for God, that's when you experience his power in that moment. Look, y'all, I haven't been dominated or controlled by my addictions in a long, long, long time. But it's not that I don't think about it sometimes. Every time I'm bored or tired, lonely, hungry, that's the first place my brain goes. God, man, if you just went back to that for a little bit, it'd be better. But it doesn't overwhelm me. It's not compulsive anymore because in that moment of being triggered and being weak, I acknowledge that weakness. God, I can't do this. This is too much for me. I can't do it on my own. I need you. When I acknowledge my weakness, my need for God, I experience his power to move through it. What you've got to learn to do to handle whatever difficulties you face, whatever ups and downs you face in life, is learn to live weak. To acknowledge in that moment of bad news or crisis or chaos or whatever news you get that rocks your world. God, I can't do this alone. I'm trusting that you promise that you will walk beside me through this, that you will partner with me, you will go through this with me. God, I need you. And when you acknowledge that weakness and your need for God, that's when you begin to experience the power of God to carry you through. Look, the last thing I want to do by sharing my story with y'all is to make light of your problems, okay? I tell this to teenagers all the time, especially, don't compare yourself to me. Don't look up and say, well, you know what, since I haven't been through something like what Runks has been through, my stuff's not that big a deal. Don't compare yourself to me, okay? Listen, this is how I say it to teenagers. I'm going to say it the same to you. If you got something going on in your life, whatever it is, if it's a big deal to you, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It doesn't matter what anybody else is going through. If it's a big deal to you, then it's a big deal, okay? And if it's a big deal to you, rest assured, it's a big deal to God. Do you hear me? Don't bow your heads and close your eyes for just a minute.